arrived at Module 8, our last module. This module is going to consider and analyze the current financial state of sport. A current trend in sport, especially youth sport, today is this notion of pay for play, and this deserves some more thought and or analysis. One thing that has arose is that there's necessarily no consensus on how this should be structured. This concept of pay for play has resulted or come about at both the youth and school sport level. Although some districts offer discounts for individuals that are active in multiple sports or families that have multiple children in multiple sports, it still should be noted that pay for play can be a costly venture for a number of families. Although many families have already been paying for their children to participate in various youth sport and club sports. Nonetheless, pay for play is an area that still needs further thought and discussion, as when youth are required to pay in order to play or participate, it can be argued there will be a number of consequences for this, as pay for play is a boundary to individuals and families with the lack of financial resources, as well as a likely boundary for individual children and our athletes who are not as highly gifted as others. There are a few areas of high school sport that have undergone some scrutiny of late, one being sponsorship and two being facilities. High school sport has now become a national phenomenon. It's being broadcasted on national television as well as being licensed and marketed nationally. Sponsorships have trickled their way down to high school sport and are used to pay for equipment, facility, maintenance, and uniforms. Next comes facilities. In our own Allen, Texas, saw its residents approve a $119 million bond in order that Allen could construct a $60 million stadium for high school sports. While this trend or this facility building in Allen may be rare, it can be argued that it will soon become the norm. The financial state of college sport has found itself in an interesting spot. Athletic expenses are outpacing revenues, mainly because of the rising cost of coaching and administrative salaries, constructing of new facilities, and the rise of tuition. It should be noted that Folk pointed out that FBS schools noted the median expenses increased by 9.5% compared to the previous year, while revenues were only increasing about 1.7%. Therefore, revenue sources is an area that is receiving much thought and analysis. Booster contributions and ticket sales continue to produce the largest revenue sources. In addition, athletic departments are now being faced with the question as to whether they will pay their student athletes a stipend to help defray their costs. In continuing to analyze college sport, two other areas should be discussed: broadcasting deals and conference realignment. In 2011, the University of Texas reached an agreement with ESPN to launch their own broadcasting network, the Longhorn Network. This channel is exclusively devoted to broadcasting and promoting the university's athletic department in the University of Texas. As part of this agreement, UT will receive payments totaling more than $300 million distributed over 20 years. This money is in addition to the share of Big 12 revenues the university already receives as a conference member. As a result of this 2011 deal with the University of Texas, many universities are seeking similar deals. Also, we've seen some changes in conference realignment. Conferences are now being forced to fend off other conferences from rating their membership. We have gone towards super conferences. Traditional rivalries are being sacrificed in order for conferences to maintain and in other circumstances grow their membership. Remember, super conferences often get better TV deals and more money. How do stadium subsidies impact public ownership? This slide considers just that. Between 1990 and 2010, the total luxury suite inventory in our four major sport leagues, MLB, NFL, NBA, and NHL, grew by 147%. In addition, club seat inventory experienced explosive growth, increasing by a whopping 624%. So what does this mean? There is extensive revenue coming from, one, luxury suites, and two, club seat inventory in publicly funded stadiums. Who benefits? Public ownership. What do I mean by that? Individuals, corporations, or a combination have traditionally owned professional sport and franchises, and therefore these organizations are not considered public entities. Stadium subsidies are typically public money, and that public money is often going to individuals. However, it should be noted that the 2010 Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers have been publicly held since 1922, and they're the only NFL franchise to have shareholders. The NFL does not allow, and has not allowed at this point, any other professional teams to be publicly held. So, all of that money, or that revenue I should say, being generated by the construction of these new unique facilities that have luxury suites and club seats, that revenue is going to individuals, corporations, or a combination of those individuals and corporations, arguably rather than the public. Throughout the long-standing history of professional sports, there have been labor disputes. And this continued in 2011, where we saw both the NFL and the NBA in labor disputes. Both leagues locked out over disagreements on how the league revenue should be divided among players. It also is interesting to note, and had talked about in prior modules, that franchise values are at an all-time high. Although interestingly, we see a number of those franchise values highest in international organizations. However, every NFL franchise was included in the top 50 most valuable franchise. We know in the city of Houston, we just saw our blessed Houston Rockets being sold at an historical price. It can be argued then that franchise values are only on the rise. International sport itself is not immune also to a number of interesting issues, good and bad. There's been intense competition among cities to host major events like Olympics or the World Cup. In that, vying for international sporting events, there has been at times bribery and corruption. Some of the reasons why countries are willing to go to such lengths to host these international sporting events is oftentimes because of the large broadcasting base that happens throughout these sporting events. We end Module 8 with some questions for thought. Use these questions as a way to check your knowledge and facts and apply the concepts we learned throughout the module.